The research station hung in space like a giant metal spider, its many arms stretching out against the dark background of stars. Epsilon 9 was not just any space station. It was home to some of the most brilliant minds from across the galaxy, each one working on puzzles that nobody had ever solved before. Inside the main research hall, Professor Jae-sung stood in front of a massive holographic display. His 4 arms were crossed, and his 3 eyes were fixed on a set of strange symbols that seemed to dance and shift with every careful look. The symbols were old, really old. They had been found on a spaceship that looked like it had been floating through space for thousands, maybe even millions of years. "This doesn't make sense," Jae-sung mumbled to himself. Around him, a dozen other alien researchers worked quietly, their fingers moving over complex computer screens and holographic keyboards. Each of them looked tired. They had been trying to understand these symbols for months. The symbols were not like any language the researchers had seen before. They looked almost like a mix between mathematical equations, ancient cave drawings, and something totally alien. Some symbols looked like twisted stars. Others appeared to be geometric shapes that seemed to change when you looked at them from different angles. Leary, a junior researcher with bright blue skin and 2 small antennae, walked up to Jae-sung. "Professor," she said, her voice soft and careful, "we've tried every translation program in the galactic database. Nothing works." Jae-sung sighed. His species was known for being the best researchers in the galaxy. They had solved mysteries that other civilizations couldn't even begin to understand. But these symbols, they were different. They were a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. The research station itself was a marvel of technology. Massive windows showed the endless black of space, with distant stars twinkling like tiny lights. Advanced machines hummed quietly, processing information at speeds that would make human computers look like toys. But for all this technology, no one could crack the code of these mysterious symbols. On the other side of the research hall, a group of human researchers were having lunch. They were part of a cultural exchange program, sent to work with alien scientists and learn about different ways of thinking. Most of the alien researchers didn't pay much attention to them. Humans were still considered a young species, not yet ready to play with the big scientific discoveries. Dr. Hannah Kim sat quietly, eating her lunch and playing with a small device. It looked like a simple tablet, but it was actually her personal communication and entertainment device. She wasn't paying much attention to the serious conversations happening around her. Instead, she was solving a crossword puzzle, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. The alien researchers continued their work, running complex algorithms and using advanced scanning technologies. They compared the symbols to thousands of known languages and communication systems. Each attempt ended the same way, with more questions and no answers. Jae-sung walked closer to the holographic display. The symbols seemed to mock him, their meaning just out of reach. He had built his entire career on solving impossible puzzles. But this was something different. This was a challenge that was pushing him and his entire team to their limits. Little did they know that the solution was sitting just a few meters away, in the hands of a human who was more interested in her puzzle game than in their complex research. Sometimes, the most incredible discoveries happen when you least expect them. The research station continued its silent dance through space, carrying its load of frustrated scientists and their impossible puzzle. The coffee station on Epsilon 9 was a strange place. It wasn't like coffee stations on Earth or on any single alien world. Here, different species mixed their unique drinks, creating a colorful and steamy collection of beverages that looked more like science experiments than something you would drink. Hannah Kim walked up to the drink maker, her crossword puzzle app still open on her personal device. She pressed a few buttons and watched as a mix of brown liquid and green powder swirled together. The drink looked weird, but it smelled good. Most alien coffee was stronger than human coffee, with ingredients that could make a normal person stay awake for days. Professor Jae-sung was standing nearby, talking with 2 other researchers. Their conversation was heated, and their voices were getting louder with each passing minute. Hannah could hear bits and pieces of their discussion. "We've tried everything," one researcher said. Her skin was a pale purple, and she had what looked like small crystal formations growing from her shoulders. "Everything except giving up," Jae-sung replied, his three eyes blinking in different patterns. This was something he did when he was frustrated. Hannah wasn't trying to listen. But sometimes, when you're in a small space station, it's hard not to hear other people's conversations. She took a sip of her strange coffee and glanced at the holographic display across the room. The mysterious symbols were still there, looking just as complicated as they had been for months. Something caught her eye. It wasn't anything big, just a tiny moment where one symbol seemed to shift in her vision. Most people would have ignored it, but Hannah's brain was different. Years of solving puzzles, doing crosswords, and working with ancient languages had trained her to see patterns that others missed. She walked closer to the display, still holding her coffee and her device. The researchers didn't notice her at first. They were too busy arguing about how impossible their problem was. "Excuse me," Hannah said quietly. Nobody heard her. "Excuse me," she said a bit louder. Jae-sung turned, looking slightly annoyed. His three eyes focused on her, each eye seeming to look in a different direction. "Yes?" he asked. Hannah pointed at the holographic display. "May I?" she asked, her voice calm and simple. The other researchers exchanged looks. Some looked confused, some looked amused. A human, wanting to help with their most difficult puzzle. It seemed impossible. Jae-sung hesitated. He was a top researcher, used to working with the most advanced technologies in the galaxy. But something in Hannah's eyes made him pause. There was a quiet confidence there. Not the loud, bragging confidence of some younger researchers, but a calm, deep understanding. "Fine," he said. "Look." Hannah stepped forward. In one hand, she still held her coffee. In the other, her crossword puzzle device. She didn't ask for special tools. She didn't request advanced scanners or complex computer systems. She just looked. The researchers watched, some hiding small smiles. They were certain she would fail. Humans were new to galactic research. They were considered interesting but not especially advanced. Most alien species saw humans as promising but still learning. What happened next would change everything. The room went quiet, really quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. Hannah's fingers moved quickly across her crossword puzzle app. To the alien researchers, it looked like she was playing a simple game. But her eyes were different. They were sharp, focused, like a hunter tracking something important. "Can someone turn up the brightness on the display?" she asked. Leary, the blue-skinned junior researcher, pressed a few buttons. The holographic symbols became clearer, their edges sharper and more defined. Hannah didn't look nervous. She looked calm. Her right hand moved between her coffee cup and her puzzle device. Sometimes she would take a quick sip. Sometimes she would tap something on the screen. The alien researchers watched, not understanding what was happening. Professor Jae-sung stepped closer. His three eyes moved in different directions, watching her every move. He had seen many researchers work, but this was different. This was something he had never seen before. "Here," Hannah said suddenly. Her finger touched one part of the symbol display. Nothing happened. The researchers looked at each other. Some started to smile. A human, solving their impossible puzzle. It seemed like a joke. But Hannah wasn't finished. She started to tap different symbols. Not randomly. There was a pattern. Her taps were quick, precise, like someone playing a complicated musical instrument. Suddenly, the holographic display changed. The symbols began to move. They shifted. They connected. What was once a crazy, impossible puzzle now looked like something else. Something that made sense. "How?" Jae-sung started to say, but he stopped. In less than 3 minutes, Hannah had done what months of advanced alien research could not do. She had decoded the message. The symbols were not just a language. They were a puzzle, a really complex puzzle that required a specific way of thinking, a human way of thinking. The decoded message showed coordinates, not just any coordinates. These were the location of something big, something important, a technological archive that had been lost for thousands of years. How did you do that? Leary asked. Her blue skin had turned a lighter shade. She looked shocked. Hannah smiled and took another sip of her coffee. Crossword puzzles, she said simply. The researchers didn't understand, but they would soon learn that human brains worked differently. Humans could think in ways that computers and advanced alien technologies could not. Jae-sung walked closer to the display. The decoded message was clear now. Every symbol made sense. Every connection was perfect. "This changes everything," he whispered. The research station seemed to hold its breath. Something big had just happened. And it happened because of a human with a puzzle app and a cup of strange coffee. Outside the station, stars continued to shine. Galaxies continued to spin. But inside Epsilon 9, everything had just changed forever. The news spread fast, faster than light, faster than any communication system in the galaxy. A human had solved a puzzle that had stopped the most advanced researchers for months. Not just solved it, destroyed it, broke it open like a simple children's game. In the research station's main conference room, Hannah sat in a chair that was too big for her. The chair was designed for a large, four-armed alien species. She looked small, but nobody was looking at her size. They were looking at her brain. Professor Jae-sung stood at the front of the room. His three eyes moved across the assembled researchers. Some looked angry. Some looked confused. Some looked excited. "Dr. Kim solved this using a crossword puzzle app," he said. His voice was calm. But under that calmness, there was something else. Excitement, maybe even a little fear. Leary, the blue-skinned researcher, stepped forward. "How?" she asked. It was a simple question, but it meant so much more. Hannah took a deep breath. "Humans are pattern solvers," she explained. "We see connections that computers miss. Our brains are made to find meaning in chaos." The room went quiet again. Alien researchers looked at each other. They had always thought computers and advanced algorithms were the best way to solve problems. Humans were new to space exploration. They were considered interesting, but not important. That was about to change. Jae-sung pulled up a holographic display. It showed the decoded message, but now he showed how Hannah had solved it. Her method was not like any research method they had seen before. She didn't use complex computers. She didn't use advanced scanning technology. She used something simpler, something more powerful. Her brain. The symbols were a puzzle, but not a language puzzle. It was more like a game. A really complex game that required thinking outside normal rules. Humans were good at breaking rules, at finding new ways to solve problems. "This changes our understanding of intelligence," Jae-sung said. His three eyes blinked in different patterns, a sign that he was thinking deeply. Outside the conference room, other researchers were talking. Some were excited. Some were scared. Humans were not just another species anymore. They were something else, something special. Hannah sat quietly. She wasn't trying to be a hero. She was just doing what came naturally to her, solving puzzles, finding connections, making sense of things that looked like nonsense. The decoded message was more than just a set of coordinates. It was a message about thinking, about how intelligence works, about finding new ways to understand the universe. "We need to study this," one researcher said. "We need to understand how human brains work." Hannah just smiled and took another sip of her coffee. She had no idea that she had just changed everything. The research station continued to float in space. Stars moved. Galaxies spun, but something was different now. Humans were not just watching anymore. They were players in a much bigger game, and nobody saw it coming. News traveled faster than light in the galactic communication network. Within hours, every research station, diplomatic center, and scientific organization knew about the human who solved the impossible puzzle. Hannah Kim became famous overnight, but she didn't feel special. She was just a researcher who liked solving puzzles. The Galactic Communication Hub buzzed with activity. Holographic screens showed Hannah's face everywhere. Some alien species looked confused. Some looked excited. Some looked worried. A human did what? Asked Ambassador Krell, a tentacled diplomat from the Orion cluster. His multiple eyes blinked rapidly. This was not normal. Humans were supposed to be the new kids in the galactic community. They were not supposed to be solving ancient mysteries that had stopped advanced civilizations. On Epsilon 9, things were changing quickly. Research teams began requesting human researchers. Universities across different star systems wanted to study human cognitive processes. Nobody had paid much attention to humans before. Now, everyone wanted to understand how their brains worked. Hannah sat in a small meeting room. Around her were researchers from 12 different alien species. Some had bodies that looked nothing like humans. Some had multiple arms. Some communicated through color changes. But they all wanted the same thing: to understand how she solved the puzzle. It was just a crossword app, Hannah said simply. But simple words often hide complex truths. Professor Jae-sung explained to the other researchers. Humans have something we lost, he said: flexible thinking. The ability to see patterns that computers and advanced algorithms cannot see. The alien researchers leaned forward. Some took notes on devices that looked like living crystals. Some recorded everything using thought-based memory devices. They didn't want to miss a single detail. Diplomatic channels began to change. Humans were no longer just another species to be studied. They were now a species to be understood, to be respected. The coordinates Hannah decoded pointed to something big, a technological archive that had been lost for thousands of years. Researchers believed it contained scientific secrets that could change everything. And a human had found the key to unlocking it. "We need more human researchers," said a researcher from the Andromeda Research Council. Her skin changed colors as she spoke, showing different emotions. Hannah felt uncomfortable with all the attention. She was a researcher who liked solving puzzles. She wasn't trying to become a galactic hero. But sometimes, heroes are made without trying. The Galactic Diplomatic Corps began creating new programs. Programs to bring more humans into research teams. Programs to study human thinking. Programs to understand how humans solved problems differently. Outside the research station, space continued its silent dance. Stars burned. Galaxies spun, but something had changed. Humans were no longer just watching. They were playing a much bigger game. Ambassador Krell sent messages to his home world. "Humans are not what we thought," he reported. "They are something else. Something unexpected." Hannah just wanted to solve her next crossword puzzle. She had no idea that her simple love for puzzles was about to change the entire galaxy's understanding of intelligence. The universe is full of surprises, and sometimes those surprises come from the most unexpected places. The research centers across the galaxy created a special program. They called it the Human Cognitive Challenge. Its goal was simple: test human problem-solving skills. Researchers brought together the strangest, most complex puzzles they could find. Some puzzles were so difficult that entire alien civilizations had given up on solving them. They thought humans might fail. They were wrong. Hannah Kim was not the only human who would participate. Researchers selected 20 of the best human puzzle solvers from Earth. They came from different backgrounds. Some were mathematicians. Some were game designers. Some were artists. Some were grandmothers who loved solving crossword puzzles. The first challenge arrived on a holographic display that looked like liquid metal. The puzzle was a complex mathematical problem that had stopped alien researchers for decades. It involved quantum mechanics, space-time principles, and mathematical relationships that most species couldn't understand. Sarah Park, a 28-year-old game designer from Seoul, looked at the puzzle. She didn't use any special computer. She used a simple notebook and a pencil. Other researchers watched in surprise. In just 2 hours, Sarah solved the puzzle. Not just solved it. She found 3 different ways to solve it. Each solution was more creative than the last. The next challenge was even more complex. It was a communication puzzle from an ancient civilization. The civilization had disappeared thousands of years ago. Their language was so complex that it made most computer translation systems crash. Michael Chen, a 45-year-old mathematician, approached the puzzle differently. He started drawing. He made connections that looked like children's drawings. But these drawings made sense. In 3 days, Michael decoded the entire language system. Alien researchers were shocked. The challenges kept coming. Each one was more difficult than the last. Alien researchers thought they would finally find a puzzle humans couldn't solve. But humans kept winning. A 67-year-old grandmother from Brazil solved a quantum entanglement problem that had stopped researchers for 200 years. A young artist from Nigeria decoded a complex biological communication system that looked more like abstract art than science. Professor Jae Sung watched these results with growing excitement. Humans don't think like computers, he told other researchers. They think like something else. The human cognitive challenge became more than a test. It became a window into a different kind of intelligence. Humans didn't follow rules. They created new rules. They saw connections that computers missed. Some alien researchers felt scared. Some felt excited. Some felt both at the same time. The research stations began changing. More humans were invited to join research teams. Universities started new programs to study human thinking. Diplomatic centers created special human exchange programs. Hannah Kim watched all of this happen. She was still just a researcher who loved solving puzzles. But she had started something big, something that would change how the galaxy understood intelligence. Outside, stars continued to shine. Galaxies continued to spin. But something was different now. Humans were not just watching anymore. They were players in a much bigger game. And nobody saw it coming. The coordinates Hannah decoded led to something nobody expected. It wasn't just a simple location. It was a hidden technological archive floating in a forgotten part of space. The archive was massive, bigger than entire planets. It looked like a giant metal sphere, covered in layers of protective energy that had kept it hidden for thousands of years. Alien research ships approached carefully. They had tried to find this place before, many times, but they always failed. Now, with Hannah's decoded message, everything changed. The first research team to enter the archive included Hannah and Professor Jae Sung. They wore special protective suits that could adapt to different environments. The suits' computer systems were nothing compared to the human brain standing inside them. As they entered, the archive came alive. Holographic displays flickered. Ancient machines began to hum. But they didn't respond to the alien researchers' advanced technology. They responded to human thinking. "Look," Hannah said quietly. The walls of the archive began to show images, not just images, entire histories, scientific discoveries that had been lost for millennia. The machines seemed to understand human curiosity in a way they never understood alien computational approaches. Professor Jae Sung's 3 eyes moved in different directions. He had seen many amazing things in his long research career, but this was different. The archive contained scientific principles that were beyond anything known in the galaxy. Technologies that could solve energy problems, medical techniques that could cure diseases, communication methods that could bridge different species. But here was the strange part. The civilization that created this archive had been unable to fully use their own discoveries. Their thinking was too rigid, too stuck in old ways of understanding. Humans were different. Each room in the archive responded to human creativity. When Michael Chen, the mathematician from the Cognitive Challenge, entered a mathematical section, the entire room transformed. Equations danced on the walls. Complex scientific principles became clear in ways they had never been clear before. The alien researchers watched in shock. Their most advanced scanners and computers couldn't do what humans did naturally. Humans could see patterns, could make connections, could think in ways that broke all the known rules. "This changes everything," Professor Jae Sung whispered. Hannah found a section that looked like a giant puzzle. Other researchers had probably seen it before, but they saw it as a wall. She saw it as a challenge. In less than an hour, she unlocked secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. The archive was more than a collection of technology. It was a test that only humans could pass. Outside the archive, research ships watched. Diplomatic centers received live updates. Every alien species was learning the same thing. Humans were not what they thought. Humans were something else entirely. The universe is full of mysteries, and sometimes the key to those mysteries is not found in advanced technology. Sometimes the key is found in a simple human brain, a brain that can see what others cannot, a brain that can solve what others think is impossible. As the research team left the archive, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Confederation changed overnight. What used to be a strict, rule-based organization now became something else, something more flexible, something more human. Research centers across hundreds of star systems began rebuilding their entire approach to problem-solving. Universities created new departments. Diplomatic centers wrote new protocols, all focused on understanding human thinking. Hannah Kim sat in a large meeting hall. Around her were representatives from 47 different alien species. Some looked like giant insects. Some looked like walking crystals. Some looked like nothing humans had ever seen before. But they all looked at her with the same expression: respect. "Humans think differently," said Ambassador Krell, his tentacles moving as he spoke, "and that is our greatest strength." The Galactic Research Excellence Medal was a big deal. Very big. In the history of the galaxy, only a handful of researchers had ever received it. Most of those researchers came from the most advanced technological civilizations. Today, Hannah Kim would be the first human to receive this honor. Professor Jae Sung stood next to her. His three eyes moved in different directions, a sign that he was feeling many emotions at once. Pride, excitement, a little bit of fear. "We discovered something important," he told the assembled researchers. "Computers are good at following rules. Humans are good at breaking rules." The archive they discovered changed everything. It wasn't just a collection of lost technologies. It was a lesson about thinking, about creativity, about seeing the world in ways that no computer could ever understand. Research teams began changing. Instead of pure technological approaches, they now included humans. Humans who could look at a problem and see something different. Humans who could solve puzzles in ways nobody expected. Some alien species were scared. Change is always scary, but most were excited. They saw humans as a new kind of resource, not just another species, but a way of thinking that could solve problems nobody else could solve. The medical discoveries from the archive were incredible. Treatments for diseases that had killed millions. Energy solutions that could help entire star systems. Communication methods that could connect species that never understood each other before. And humans were at the center of it all. Young humans from Earth began receiving special invitations. Research centers, diplomatic missions, scientific expeditions. They wanted people who could think differently, people who could solve the impossible. Hannah received her medal. The hall was silent. Then the applause started. It wasn't just clapping. It was a sound that went beyond simple noise. It was a recognition of something new, something important. "Humans are not just another species," Ambassador Krell said. "They are a new way of understanding the universe." Outside the hall, space continued its silent dance. Stars burned. Galaxies spun, but something had changed. Humans were not just watching anymore. They were changing everything. A crossword puzzle app had started all of this, a simple game that showed the galaxy something important. Sometimes, the most advanced solution comes from the most unexpected place. The universe is full of mysteries, and humans were becoming the key to solving those mysteries. The final truth came slowly, like a sunrise that takes its time to light up the entire sky. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were something else, something special. Research teams discovered that human creativity was not an accident. It was a feature, a powerful, unpredictable feature that could solve problems no computer could ever solve. On Earth, things were changing too. Young people who used to play puzzle games were now getting job offers from alien research centers. Game designers became problem solvers. Artists became scientific researchers. Grandmothers who loved crossword puzzles were invited to solve galactic mysteries. Professor Jae Sung published a research paper that changed everything. Its title was simple: Why Humans Think Differently. The paper explained something important. Most advanced civilizations had engineered creativity out of their thinking. They wanted perfect, predictable results. Humans were different. Humans loved surprises. Humans loved breaking rules. The Galactic Research Center created a special program. They called it the Human Potential Initiative. Its job was simple: find humans who could solve the impossible. They didn't look for people with the best grades. They looked for people who could think differently. People who could see connections that others missed. Sarah Park, the game designer who solved the quantum mechanics puzzle, became a lead researcher. Michael Chen, the mathematician, started teaching at a galactic university. Humans were no longer just students. They were teachers. The technological archive continued to give up its secrets, but only to human researchers. Alien computers could scan it, but they couldn't understand it. Humans could walk into a room and make the impossible possible. Creativity is not a mistake, Professor Jae Sung would say in his lectures. It is the most powerful tool in the universe. Alien species began to change how they thought about intelligence. It wasn't about having the most advanced computer. It was about being able to see things differently, to break rules, to imagine what nobody had imagined before. Hannah Kim continued to solve puzzles. She didn't see herself as a hero. She was just a researcher who loved solving problems. But she had started something big, something that would change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Confederation rewrote its research protocols. They added something new, something that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Human thinking is now considered a primary research methodology. The new guidelines read: Diplomatic centers created new exchange programs. Schools on Earth started teaching students about galactic problem solving. Young humans learned that their ability to think differently was their greatest strength. The universe is full of rules. Most species follow those rules perfectly. Humans were different. Humans saw rules as suggestions. Humans saw impossible problems as fun challenges. Some alien species were scared of this new way of thinking. Some were excited. Most were both scared and excited at the same time. Outside, stars continued to burn. Galaxies continued to spin, but something had changed. Humans were not just watching the universe anymore. Humans were changing the universe, and it all started with a simple crossword puzzle app. The most advanced solution, they discovered, often comes from the most unexpected place, from a human brain that refuses to follow the rules.